Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the day 3 of the free week in software quality assurance testing offered by the SkillReal Academy. So far, you guys have been doing a great job being so interactive, answering the questions, participating in every task. Basically, I'm very happy about your participation. This is a way to learn, so you have to be active during the lessons, during the actual bootcamp lessons as well. We encourage students to be very active and help each other during the learning process, so that you can learn from each other. Now you can speak up, share your opinion, and ask questions. Okay, so far we have learned what software testing is. Right? We talked about requirement documentation and how important it is to understand the requirements, to learn more about the product before you start testing, before you start coming up with different testing scenarios, whether positive test cases or negative test cases. It is the better you understand the requirements, the better you know the product, higher chances that you have that the quality of your testing will be good, and then you can uncover more defects, basically. Okay, so we talked about that yesterday. We talked about software bugs and bug tracking and how bug lifecycle works. We created our first bug report. If you missed that class, make sure you watch the recording. Okay, and if you will have any questions, reach out. Today, we will look into something a bit more technical. It's really not at the level of complex programming languages such as Python or Java or C#. SQL is more like a query language. Okay, it's a SQL is a query language. It is used to interact with the database. And we'll talk about what database is, what tables are. It's simple. It is constructed in such a way that it sounds like a simple English, basically. Okay, so you'd be actually surprised to see if you've never used SQL. It sounds like plain English to you, basically. All right, tomorrow, don't miss the class. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about Python programming language. Okay, so Python programming language. Now, and we're going to write our first line of code. So that's going to be fun. Day 5, Friday, I'll show you how to write the code to interact with the browser, so that you're going to write a code, you'll be automatically open the browser and then navigate to a specific web page and find the elements on the page and input some text and so on. Okay, all right, so let's get started. Here's our today's agenda. Basically, the topics or the questions that we will be looking into one by one is that what the database is and what the table is. Okay, what the database is, what the table is, also how to select data, how to select information from the table. We're gonna make it very simple for you, okay? Because that's a way to learn. As I said several times throughout this week, anything that looks complex to you, try to simplify it. And I spoke about the generative AI ChatGPT as well. Utilize this as much as you can during the learning process, during job hunting process, and the actual work as well. So any question that you're not sure about, any topic, you can always ask from your mentor. You could Google, yeah, but nowadays I would say another best second opinion that you can get would be generative AI, just ChatGPT. Now, Google has their own version of generative AI as a Bard, but I think they are just renamed it to Gemini, I think. We'll learn how to filter data. I'll show that in Microsoft Excel, and I'll also show that in the actual using the SQL query language. We'll also learn how to order it, basically sort it. Okay. All right. With that, let's move on. How the software is actually constructed. Understanding that is very important. So that you have the overall picture. Every software has several layers. Okay. It has several layers. There's a layer that's visible to you, and there are other layers that are not really visible to the regular user, to the regular non-technical end user. As a non-technical end user or a tester, most of the time you will be interacting with the presentation layer. Most of the time you will be interacting with the colorful screens where you can click, where you can drag and drop, hover over. Okay, you can input some text that can be on any device, basically, either on a laptop or your mobile device or anything, basically, right? Any screen that we use these days. When you see this colorful elements such as buttons or drop downs, anything where you can select, you can type in, that's a presentation layer. And there are specific languages that are used to create the presentation layer, such as HTML, CSS, JavaScript is also used there. So that's really where the functional testing happens. Okay, like we did on the day one and the day two as well. Is we opened this web application and then we interacted with the web application using its presentation layer. Right, we entered username, we entered password, and we clicked the login button. That was the presentation layer. But behind the scenes, there are two more layers, basically. The first layer that stands behind the presentation layer is the application layer, also referred to as a business logic layer. So this is where developers put a lot of effort. That's where the programming languages such as C# or Python can be actually used to create the main business logic of the applications. But there has to be some storage to keep all the data, right? Just think about the Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. There is so much information that has to be kept, right? So many people all the time uploading pictures and videos and their own information about their their birthday and the location and all that data. It has to be stored somewhere, and it has to be stored in a very organized, efficient way so that the business logic, right, the application layer, can quickly extract that information, and then give it to you through the presentation layer. You understand? Okay, so there is a need, it's logical, basically, to store the information somewhere. Okay, and that's what we refer to as a data layer. Now, why are we talking about data layer? Because that's where the information is stored, and in order to test that the data is being stored correctly, or in order to interact with the data layer, you need the SQL. Okay, that's where you're going to use the structured query language, SQL. All right, let's move on. There are two concepts that are frequently used in testing, in IT. We say front end and we say back end. Also be familiar with that. Okay, so front end is basically, that's a presentation layer. Another word is UI, user interface, or graphical user interface, GUI. Okay, so that's where most of the functional testing happens. as a tester, most of your work, as a manual tester, by the way, most of your work will happen at the presentation layer, basically. Okay. And the data layer is also referred to as a backend, basically. Okay, so that's a backend layer for us. And we're also going to learn how to interact with the backend or with the layer where the data is stored. Okay. All right. So here's a question to you. What do you think the database is? You can go ahead and put your answers into the chat. Okay. All right. So I see it is collection of data is a database. Good answer. Thank you. Another answer, it's a storage. Thank you. All right. It's a type of software. Well, you can say so. Databases are also created using a specific software. I'm going to show you actually one of those softwares. And it's like a container. Great. Yeah. It's like a container that holds all the data, all the information. That is correct, guys. So your answers are to the point, basically. The database, if we simplify it, it's like a warehouse. It's like a warehouse, like a storage with cabinets, right? With little cabinets. That's how we organize, right? That's how we organize our information. So database is like a warehouse with cabinets, which is used to store and manage application data. Okay, applications data. This symbol is usually used, the shape is usually used to refer to the databases. Okay. Now, within the databases, we have those little cabinets, and we refer to them as tables. See them? Those little tables, they contain all the information. Okay. Those are, and it has columns, it has rows. So tables are like Excel, Microsoft Excel spreadsheets. They have rows and columns, basically. Okay. And this is how they look like. Very simple, right? Think about it. It's very simple. You have the columns, you have the rows, and you have seen such tables, I'm pretty sure, as a regular user. When you are using Microsoft Excel to perform any operations, so to store some information, or Google Sheets for that matter. So this is a way to organize the data, to keep the data, basically. Okay, so now we kind of have an understanding of what the database is and what the table is, right? So again, if we just go back, take a look, we have the database, and within the database, we have tables. That's clear, right? That is clear to everybody. So we have databases, and within the database, we have tables. So what does SQL stand for? Anybody? Do you guys know what SQL or SQL stands for? That is correct. Yes, thank you. SQL stands for Structured Query Language. That is right. It's a structured query language. So we use SQL to query. Query means to ask, to request information, right? So you need to speak that language, basically, in order to retrieve some information from the database. Okay. If you just make a mistake, and if you have typos, if you have syntax issues when you're writing SQL, then you're going to get error messages, basically, right? Database will not understand you, basically. Okay. So you have, again, it is very simple, but at the same time, you have to follow a specific syntax. All right. So I'm going to show you how to interact with the database And the first thing that we're going to learn today is how to select the data, right? How to select the data. Let's take the first example, the simplest example. So if you want to retrieve all the information from employees table, if you want to get all the information from employees table, then the syntax that you write would be, or the query that you write would be select in star, right? It's okay to call it a star. So select star. Star basically means all the columns, right? Select star from employees. Sounds like English, right? It's simple. So that basically means just show me all the columns and rows from the employees table in the database. And if you wanted to select a specific column, then you have to mention the column name instead of the star. Okay? Now, with that, let's take a look at the tool that is referred to as, that's known as a SQL Server Management Studio. Okay? So this particular tool is used to organize data, right? Developers use this tool to create databases, to create tables, and as a tester, you can use the same tool to test or to create your queries and to run queries against the database and tables, so that you can get the results. All right. Now, in the left-hand side, just pay attention to the left-hand side. You see that it says databases, right? On top of that, what you see here is the server. What does server mean? Server is basically, it means a more powerful, centralized computer. Right? So this is not a separate computer, but it's a let's put it that way. It's a local server in my computer. Okay, it's a local server in my computer. And within the server, you have databases. And you can see that there are several databases such as AdventureWorks, DataMart, Data Warehouse, and HR database. So today we're going to look into the HR Human Resources database with you. Okay. So if I expand the database, you can see that there's a table section, but there's a bit more here, of course, but we're going to keep it simple then and look into the tables only. If you look into under the tables, you will see those table-like icons, such as, and you can read the name of those tables, such as countries, departments, dependents, employees, jobs, locations, regions, and so on. So those are the names of the tables. Okay. Now you would be wondering, like, okay, so this is the name of the table. Now, how can I look into it, right? How can I see what's in that table? To do this, now we need to write a query. Okay? So let's say if I wanted to select all the information from employees table, then with this plain English, you would start typing in select all the columns. Star stands for all the columns from employees, and it's the system is smart, and it's gonna prompt you. It's gonna give you the name of the table. Okay, here we go. Select star from employees. Now, so this is the query. It's a very first query that everybody learns to write when they're learning. And in the left-hand side, right here, you have an execute button here. If I run execute button, I will be able to see all the records from that table. Okay, you see that? Was it difficult? I don't think so. So select star, basically the star would mean, again, all the columns from employees table. S Sounds like English to me. And the data that you're looking at looks like a Microsoft Excel actually. So you can see you have the rows and you have the columns, right? Every column has a name. Every column has a name. So the first one is the employee ID, and then we have a first name and a last name, email, phone number, and so on. Okay. And you can see how many records you have here by looking at the right bottom corner. You see that it's a 40 rows. So we have 40 records here. Okay, 40 employees in this particular organization. Now let me show you the Microsoft Excel as well at the same time. The same data, the same information, the same 40 records have been exported and just placed into the Microsoft Excel to make it easier for you to understand. Have you ever seen Microsoft Excel? I'm pretty sure you have seen Microsoft Excel or spreadsheet such as Google Sheets before. Okay, so the same information. The only difference is that instead of being in Microsoft Excel, we're dealing with database. That's the only difference. If in Microsoft Excel, you would just open the document, you would just double click and open and view and look into it. In case of SQL, you have to write a query. You have to write a query. So select star from employees. Okay, all right. Now, what if instead of all the columns, I wanted to specifically select first name and the last name? That can be done. That can be done. All right, so I can go ahead and start typing in first name, as you can see here. That's the first name. I just hit tab and it just auto completes for me. And I have to put comma. Now I will start typing in the name of the second column, first name and last name from employees table. Go ahead and run the query, and here we go. You can see that I got rid of all the other columns and I specifically selected just the first name and last name. Make sense? All right. Okay. Now let's go back. So far, what we just learned was we learned how to select data from the table, okay, using the select statement and also the keyword from. So select something from and then the table name. That's the syntax basically, right? Now, if you make a mistake though, if you make a mistake there, let's say instead of select, right? I have a typo here, as you can see. I just forgot about another E. And then if I execute my command or my query, what do I get? I'm going to receive an error message. So as a QA tester, as someone who's in IT basically, or who's planning to be in IT, or is learning the IT industry, when you get an error message, read the error messages. Okay, so you learn a lot from reading the error messages. Error messages are here to teach you, to tell you something. It's not something that you just have to ignore. No, you have to look into this. Okay, so incorrect syntax near from. So we won't be able to exactly tell you where the issue is, but the system is smart enough to at least to underline, right? So as you can see, it underlined this particular statement, and you can see that, oh, okay, looks like I made a mistake here. Okay. All right. So read the error messages. You'll learn a lot from the errors. So the next step is to learn how to distinctly select information. How to select information distinctly. That's important. So that can be done using the keyword distinct. Select, and you just have to use the word distinct instead of just saying select first name from employees. If you just add the distinct after the select distinct first name from employees, that will go ahead and look for all the first names. And if there are two Johns, let's say, it would only give you one John. It would actually select distinctly, basically. Okay. So so let's take a look how this can be done. I'm gonna go back and then just replace this with the star again, just to select everything. Okay, just to select everything. Take a look at the department ID. Take a look at the department ID. That's the last column right here. Do you see that there's a integer or a number for every department ID? And I would like to see how many different departments we have here. Okay, if I go ahead and select department ID from employees, and it returns 40 rows. Okay, it gives 40 records, 40 rows, and they are repeating. Do you see that? I have 3 9s here, and I have 6 and a 10 and a 3 and so on. So they are repeating, but I want to see them distinctly so that I can have a sense of, I can understand how many records or how many unique department IDs we have, how many unique departments we have in this organization. To do this, you only have to add the distinct keyword now after the select, before the column name. Okay, so before the column name, after the select, right here, we go ahead and execute, and here we go. You see that? Now that repetitions or duplicates are basically, they're gone, and you can see that, you know, we have 11 records left. We have 11 departments. That's what we have. Okay, so that's a great way of uniquely selecting the records or the values. Okay, let's go ahead and do this one more time for another column. Okay, another column here would be the job IDs as well. You see that? If I select all the job IDs here, if I select all the job IDs, and you would see that, okay, so there's a repetition again, there are some duplicates, but if I put distinct here, select distinct job ID from employees and then run, you would see that looks like there are 19 job IDs, right? So there are 19 different job positions in the organization. So there's developers or business analysts, there's a manager, there's a vice president, QA analyst, QA engineer, and so on, right? That would be the job titles. In every title would have an ID, like a unique identifier. That's what the ID means. And when you're working with data, it's important to try to understand the information as well. Don't just learn the SQL, but at the same time, pay attention to what kind of information you're working with. That helps a lot. That really helps you to write better queries. Okay, so if you're dealing with, let's say in this particular case, this is HR data, right? This is a human resources data. So you need to start making sense of what you're dealing with. So if I look into the job ID, for example, that tells me, okay, so every job position has an ID. All right, so that 4 means something, that 5 right here, or 9, that actually means something. Okay. All right. Let's do the same thing for another column, like a first name, for example. Right. So like first name from employees, you can see that all the 40 records returned. But then if I put distinct, let's say if we have any repetitive first names, yeah, actually the number of records now decreased to 37. So it looks like we actually had few employees with the same name. Okay. All right, let's go back. So far, you have learned how to select data from the table. Very straightforward. Select and the column name from table name. That's it. Okay. But also practice makes it perfect. So it's you really don't need this particular tool either to practice. There are so many resources online, free resources where you can actually go ahead and then practice SQL, like online SQL editors where you can write queries. That's absolutely possible. And reach out to me if you're not if you don't know where to get them. Okay, but as part of the bootcamp, we certainly provide access to such tools that I'm showing you. There's also an Oracle. We also have an Oracle database on the cloud where we provide access to, and then you will be able to connect and then write queries. All right. Next important query or next important thing that we're going to learn in SQL is how to filter the records. That's an important one. How to filter the records. So most of the time, you want to be specific when you write a query, and you want to select a specific record instead of just selecting all the records, right? So I'm not really looking for all the employees, but I'm looking for employees whose name is John, or I'm looking for employees whose hire date is a particular date, right? So like, searching for a specific record, basically. And that can be done using the where clause or where keyword. You see that? This particular example here, it's a select star, means all the columns, from employees table, where, simple English, right? Where name column is equal to John. Okay, where name column is equal to John. That's what we're looking for. Or second example is select star, all the columns, from employees table where the hire date column has a value of 1993 and 0113. Okay, let's go ahead and try to do this, and we'll try to make sense out of it. Okay, here we go. So we're going to go back to our select star from employees to look at the data, right? To look at the data. And now I'm looking for employees whose name, or specifically for the employee whose name is John, let's say. Okay, so I will say select star for employees where, see, where the first name, here you go, first name is equal to, and pay attention to the single quotes that I'm writing here. All right, I'll talk about this in a minute. Is equal to John. So select all the columns from employees table where first name column, right here, this is the first name column, contains a value of John, or equal to John, basically, specifically equal to John. And if we go ahead and run this query, here we go. We have, now we're looking at two records. Both of them under the first name has John as a first name, right? So John Chen and John Russell. So employee ID 110, 145. Looks like we have two employees with the name John. Okay, makes sense, right? So if you want to run a specific line, you can do that too. For that, in SQL query, you're going to have to select this record, and then or a particular row, and then run separately. You can do that. Okay, so the environment is smart enough to understand, okay, let's just run this row and ignore the second row. Okay, and you can also comment out. That means, like, if you just put like a 2 dashes, that means this is no longer treated as part of the query, but it's more like a comment, like a note. So it will completely ignore it. So I can run again, and instead it will return all the records for me, all 40 records. So let's try this again. This time I'm going to go ahead and look for the last name. Let's say where last name is equal to, let's say, King, right? The last name is King. And execute, here we go. So we have one employee whose last name is King, Stephen King. Here we go. Okay, makes sense? All righty. Now, here's a question. Would the capitalization matter? Would it be different output if you had a lowercase j? So, nope, it depends on the environment. As you can see, I just capitalized King right here and still worked. It still worked. It depends on the tool that you're using. For, in this particular case, we're using SQL Server Management Studio. This is a SQL server, and SQL language itself, it has different flavors. So there's Oracle, there's a Postgre, and there's MySQL. Again, I don't want to overwhelm anyone here with the different flavors of SQL. If you learn one of the core fundamentals of SQL, your skills are transferable. Okay, so if you know SQL, then with a little bit of adjustment, you can work in Oracle, you can work in MySQL, you can work in any other flavors of SQL. Okay, they're not like a distinct languages such as, let's say, Python and Java. They're the same, but a little bit of a different dialect, tiny difference basically. Okay. All right, so so with that, so we learn how to use the where clause. That's a good thing. Now let's see if we can look for the hire dates as well. So if we look for with the hire dates, and we can do with the salary tool, right? We can do with the salary tool. So I will go ahead and say where the salary is. Let's say this, we're going to put the salary as 4,800, where the salary is 4,800. Here we go. Okay, so it looks like we have two employees whose salary is 4,800 or 4,800. Okay, so you know how to filter. You know how to filter the records using the where clause. And if you want to compare it with Microsoft Excel, you can do that, right? And comparison is the best way to learn, actually. So Microsoft Excel is also highly, frequently used tool or the spreadsheet. So if you don't know how to use Microsoft Excel, trust me, you want to learn this. You want to take maybe some free YouTube videos and then learn how to use Microsoft Excel, because when in any organization that I know, the tool, the Excel spreadsheets are used on a daily basis. So you should be familiar with how to use the filters, for example, here, right? So as you can see here, how did I put the filters? So under the data section, you have filters. So you can turn them on, off and on. And again, if I was looking for someone with a first name of John, then you can do that. So you go ahead and text filters right here. That will be one option. You see it says equals, and now I'll just type in John. Okay, here we go. I pretty much did the exact same thing. This is the same approach, just like we did in the SQL Server Management Studio, saying where first name is equal to John. But I did this in Microsoft Excel. Okay, so we're going to clear this, or let's say right here, the salary is equal to 4,800. Yeah, debit and then Valley. Do we have the same records? Debit and Valley. Yep. Okay. All right. Let's go back. So we learned how to select. We learned how to select distinctly. And we also learned how to filter the records using the where clause, where a particular record or the column is equal to a specific value. But how about like a pattern searching. How about if I'm looking for the records where the first name starts with A, it doesn't have to be equal to John, let's say, or it just starts with J or ends with J. See, so you're basically you're trying to look for a solution to search by a pattern or partial match. A pattern matching or partial match, that's what we're looking for. That can be done. That can be done. And the syntax here would be very similar to what you have learned so far. Again, select star from employees where first name, and then you use the keyword like. Okay, where the first name like, let's say, you know, we're looking for first names that starts with A and then it can end with whatever letters. That's when you use the percentage sign. Okay, let's go ahead and do this. And we're also going to learn how to use the greater than sign or less than sign. That's another important concept to learn. Okay. Again, we're gonna go back and then just select the first row here so that we can look at the data. We're gonna look at the data. And then we'll say, I'm looking for all the records where the first name is like a letter A and the percentage. Okay, letter A and the percentage. What does it mean? So it means that it starts with the letter A and it can end with any number of characters or any letters, basically. So that we don't care. Anything that starts with A. So as you can see, we have Alexander, 2 Alexanders, by the way, and then we have 1 Adam. We can look for first names that start with B. Here you go, Bruce and Brittany. How about if we look for the first names that end with E? Do we have anything like that? Yeah, we do. You see that, Bruce and Iran, that ends with E. How about with A? Do we have any records? Yeah, Nina, Diana, Oshanta. So their first names are ending with A. So it really depends on where you put the percentage sign, right? So if I put the percentage sign at the beginning, that means that any letters at the beginning, but then it ends with A. Okay, but then you could use 2 percentage signs as well. So anywhere, as long as I have some 2 E's, for example, right? Or any first name where we have I and A in the middle. So for example, Diana has I and A in the middle, or William has I and A letters in the middle. This is what we refer to as a pattern searching or partial match. Okay, easy and fun. And trust me, the same thing can be done in Microsoft Excel as well. If I were to do something like this, let's say go to first name, you see that the option begins with or ends with or contains. Same thing, right? Begins with letter A. Here we go, Alexander, Adam. Okay, easy, right? And I can do ends with, let's say, letter A. Here you go. Or you can do contains, and I and E. You have Daniel. You got the point, right? It's really important to choose the correct learning method, guys. It's very important. When you look into something like SQL, where you're interacting with the data, with the information, think about what you can compare that against, and think about different ways of learning. Don't overcomplicate things. Try to simplify as much as possible, and also try to make sense of the data, the information that you're using. That's when it's going to make more sense. Do not just blindly learn SQL and then just type SQL queries. You need to understand the records, the meaning of the records or the information that you're dealing with. If you're dealing with employees' data, pay some attention to it, right? So pay some attention and think about, okay, I'm working with employees' data. So what does employee ID mean? Or what does, job ID mean, or manager ID? So that has to mean something, right? Some are self-explanatory, such as email, first name. So question more, research more. Don't just leave any stone uncovered. Basically, that's the thing in learning process. So we learn how to use the like operator. So how about if I want to get only the records where the salary is more than 10,000? Can this be done? So we'll say where salary is greater than, right? Simple math operators, just greater than, or equal, and all of that can be used. So salary is more than 10,000. There you go. And you can see that we only received the salaries that are more than 10,000. Or we could do less than 5,000. Here we go. And pay attention to the salary column. You can see that it's less than 5,000. And you can use the less than and equal, and all of those operators can be used. Okay. All right. All right. Now, here's a question. A like and the equal sign is the same meaning. Well, you can think of it that way to a certain extent. Well, but the like is more of like a partial match, right? So there was a question from the audience. So is the like and then the equal is the same thing? So, well, they're similar, but when you use equal, you're basically saying I'm looking for exact match. It has to match exactly. But like is like it has to match partially. It's okay to match the beginning or ending or something in the middle, right? Okay, I think we have learned a lot. So now there's one more important concept that we want to cover is how to order the records, how to order or sort the records, right? So pay attention to the simple English words that we're using. Filter, order, right? To filter, we use where clause, because you're really filtering the records, right? Instead of selecting all the records, we're selecting only where the name is John, where the hire date is specific date. That's filtering, right? That's filtering. How about ordering? Ordering is not the same thing as filtering, right? Ordering means sorting. Have you ever sorted on Amazon? So, or on, let's say you're choosing a hotel for yourself, you're really going to sort by the stars or by the location closest to the destination, right? To the city. So that's sorting. So how can we sort in SQL? Using the keyword order by. Again, simple English, order by, right? So we want to select all the employees, but we want to see their salaries in the ordered, in a sorted way. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. And so first, we'll select all the records, and you can see that the salaries are not necessarily ordered, right? It's usually ordered by the employee ID, like an identification of each employee. You can see that it starts from 100 and all the way to 206 or something. But if we wanted to order by salary, then we use the order by, right, clause, and we say we mention the name of the column, order by salary. So if we run the query, then you can see that the records now ordered from starting from the lowest salary all the way to the highest salary. The highest salary right here is at 24,000, and the lowest salary is 2,500. So starting from the lowest all the way to the highest salary, it orders by default, right? And if you wanted to order it, if you wanted to swap it, right? If you first you want to see the highest salary and then the lowest salary at the bottom, then you're gonna have to add additional keyword here, descending, or DESC, which stands for descending. And if you run, now you can see that now we see the highest salary first, and the second highest salary, third highest salary, and so on. There are inquiry questions such as write a query to find the highest salary, write a query to find the second highest salary, to find the third highest salary. So we teach all of that as part of the bootcamp. And that information obviously available, if you self-research as well. I personally recommend don't lose any time. Study consistently, study anytime you can, basically. So there's so much information available, and you can continuously and consistently work on yourself and improve your knowledge. This is all this information such as SQL or Python, everything is pretty much publicly available to everybody. All right, so it's really up to you how you utilize your time, how efficiently you utilize your time, and become competitive in the market. But as a bootcamp, what we can do is that we can help you with more efficient or optimized resources, such as as I mentioned this several times in the first lesson as well. Flashcards are useful, right? So flashcards such as you can see, and here we go. That would be a flashcards for SQL. That's something that we provide access to as part of the bootcamp. Okay, and also writing or solving the code challenges. There are code challenges for the SQL as well, and those are the code challenges for Python. Might seem complex, but you're gonna get there step by step, basically. Okay. All right. So let's answer this very important question together, guys. So why study SQL? In which part of the job search process, or in what type of position SQL is actually required, or is it actually going to help you? So the answer is pretty much in any job position in testing, SQL plays an important role. So take a look at this junior manual tester position. It's a junior tester position, right? So they're really looking for someone with maybe very little experience. That's what we refer to as a junior. But even for that, they're expecting you to be good at SQL. See, QA with SQL experience, or strong experience in SQL queries, and responsible for performing database level test execution, and so on. And they're also referring to Unix, and so we basically teach you Linux, Unix, pretty much the same, and ensuring that the defects are tracked to closure. You know how to track the defects, right? We briefly talked about this. And here's another position, ETL tester position. Now this is a bit more complex, or a bit more higher standing position. I wouldn't call that as junior anymore. So ETL testing is a specialization. It's like API testing is a specialization within QA, or automation testing is a specialization within QA. ETL testing is also a highly valuable skill to have. And the fundamentals to become an ETL tester is knowing SQL. Okay, ETL basically it stands for extract, transform, and load. It's all about data, information moving from one place, what we refer to as a source, to another place that we refer to as a target. From source to target, data moves. Data is always moving. Right, you input your data in all sort of applications. You go to you rent a car, you give them you provide all the information to them, and that information goes into the databases, and from smaller databases to larger analytical databases, that all that information flows so that they can generate reports, so that the business can make better decisions, better strategic decisions. So accordingly, data is always flowing from one place to another place, and its format is also changing, it's transforming. And that's when they need the testers. They need testers like you, who's good at SQL, who's going to come in and then study the requirement documents. In SQL, we refer to them as data mapping document, not functional requirement document, but data mapping document. We'll show you how the data mapping document looks like, and you're actually going to study the data mapping document and then create queries based on the data mapping document. And then you're actually going to test the data movement, data migration as part of the ETL learning process. Okay, so that's the answer to the question of why study SQL. Right, it's very important. Together with manual testing theory and practice, you also have to be good at SQL. You have to be good at SQL in order to present yourself and compete in the job market. Okay? All right. I hope this is clear. I hope that is clear. And as you can see from the list of tools as part of this free week so far, we have looked into Azure DevOps, and we also looked in right here at the bottom on the SQL Server Management Studio, and you also been introduced to SQL a little bit, okay, in general. Next lesson, guys, as I repeated several times, Python. So tomorrow, don't miss the same time,